Hello, good morning. It's noon for you. Good lunchtime, my
Good
friend.
lunch. Good lunchtime. A little early. I usually eat a little bit later, but that's okay.
Okay, great. So brunchish. Thank you so much for joining me on my little talk show adventure, Meredith. For those who don't know you, please tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you and what do you do?
I'm Mary Beth Blair. I am currently legal operations and commercial counsel for FUJIFILM Holdings America Corporation. So that's the FUJIFILM in the Americas, obviously. It's a global, many entities globally, but we're focused in the Americas. My in-house career started at Panera Bread, where I started out as counsel for them, and that morphed into counsel and legal operations, which again is a sort of a unique combo that I've traveled, when I've traveled throughout my career, and from company to company, I've either been in that dual role. I have once been just a legal operations director, but for me, I think it's been very enjoyable. Like I said, I started that at Panera. I was at Coursera I was associate general counsel and legal operations director there as well. So it's been a unique career in that respect of getting able to be the best of both worlds.
I love the combo. I love the combo. You and I probably have a little bit of a unique parallel, similar paths. So when I discovered that I liked operations, it's only because I realized that I love doing contracting. Lots and lots of contracts in a more efficient way. Didn't kind of know it had a name, and then over time realized, wait a second, I think this is an operation. This is an ongoing, continuous processes and tasks and things. And it is nice to have the combo. I think you and I might have already, chatted about this at some point in some of our prior chats, but really, ops alone, if you're trying to tackle contracting, and I see a lot of ops leaders struggle when, CLM is tossed at them, because that intersection between operations and actual substantive legal work, I feel like contracting is a true legal operation. It's not just an operation in a law department. It is truly legal and ops, right? Is that,
right.
Give me a little bit of your philosophy on contracting.
Yeah, I think, it's, well, you hear the conversations, right? You need to be a lawyer to do legal operations. No, you do not. Absolutely. But for CLM expertise and contracting process improvement, it's a huge, huge benefit to be, but not just any lawyer, to be a contracts lawyer, right? Like that's where I built my career in-house, was doing contracts, mostly on the vendor side. Yeah. And it's a huge advantage, because whether it's the technology you're working with or the processes that you're working with, or even the people that you're working with, that legal perspective is a huge help. And you can teach your legal ops team about it, but you'll just issue spot faster. And I also think you get a little bit of credibility with the contract lawyers when you are trying to get them on board to something, to say, hey, I've been there, I've done this, I know what you're going through.
Yeah, for sure. I think, do you think, like, especially, I always see it as when people are trying to work on CLM and fix their contracting problems, there's the infrastructural operational part, workflow, intake, and that is not as critical to have that contracts background. It's critical though to have that in-house background, because you know what it's like to be yelled at by the business because nothing's fast enough for them. But that's still very operational to me. Intake, workflow, storage, routing for signature. This middle part, the actual review, what it means to edit, to redline, to negotiate, to bounce back and forth, that's the part where automating that without knowing what it feels like to live inside of a contract negotiation, that's what I think is the big miss. And I do think legal ops leaders struggle, and I think they realize it very quickly because there's a gap in that experience.
Yeah, and I think when you, even when you talk about redlining, but it's even all the back and forth that you do internally, right? The people that you need to get those approvals on, right? You need to collaborate with your finance department. But and as the lawyer, you're oftentimes, whether you like it or not, you're quarterbacking.
I knew it.
So you need to know how that, like, what's the best method for this system to work, based on whether it's how you redline or how you move that contract through the system.
Let's do a really simple example. I think for, again, anybody listening who's struggling, certainly in the legal ops function, that here's a real life example where just trying to automate and bringing in the tech that will say, yep, we'll route it for, approvals, we'll route it. You can just assign it to other people in your department, in the company, and it sounds good. But as the lawyer, we know what it's like when you need input from tax, you need input from privacy, you need input from finance, you need input for compliance, let's just say.
Yeah.
Very practical in bigger deals. You could need all of these inputs. We know how to ask them for input on the particular thing, how to couch this, how to get it easier for them to do their job and for us to get what we need moving fast. Assigning it in a tool to people who you ping once every quarter at most, they're gonna be like, why are you sending me something in some tool? I feel like that's what's forgotten when you're just thinking about tech, right? That
is. And all the other tools that those people use, right? So they're getting pinged from all these different sides, ServiceNow or whomever, like for IT and all those pieces and parts. And they're just not.
They don't want to. They don't want to be dragged into something when their core job is to be a privacy expert. They're like, why am I being pinged on this thing? And then I have to read and
can't find it. And
right.
Where do I put my approval?
Exactly. And I think that reality is lost when during the demo process, because the function's there, the tech is there. It's a mismatch with the process. And that is, of course, what I'm the biggest broken record, right? Of process first. Can you please figure out your process very clearly before you try to automate? I mean, that is like a mantra, a tale as old as time.
It is. It absolutely is.
So let's talk. So, we've already touched on contracting CLM. Of course, that is the hot topic that I love to cover in these, is really that lived it, breathed it experience. You and I both know that there are so many systems on the market right now that it's absolutely, it exploded. Like there was a first big boom, I think, post-pandemic, when everybody realized that we got to be in the cloud and be virtual. And then, of course, what are we? Well, we're only 7 minutes in, but I'm going to go ahead and say that the two-lettered monster word, right? And then AI slapped CLM, I would say slapped it in the face. And now everybody's trying to figure out what to do with it, because they pre-existing bigger CLM systems, full-on systems, are trying to very quickly bring in AI, embrace it, optimize it. And then there's the kind of AI first technology. So tell me a little bit about what you've been seeing. I know you've lived and breathed in various systems and have quite a broad experience, but what do you think is happening with AI and contracting today?
I think the issue, some of the issue stems around, as you were saying, you have these, the big players, right? Or just the players that have been around for a long time, even if they're not like a huge player, they're your traditional CLM. And then with AI coming, and I feel like all of a sudden your inbox and your GC's inbox is all about AI, and everybody wants, we got to get gains, we got to do this. And there was this crush, I think, for some of the traditional CLMs to try to keep that business, right? Don't go over and get your AI from this company. We're going to do it all for you. And I don't know that that's always been, I think it's taken a long time for that to be successful, right? Because the true AI players are very good at AI. The AI redlining tools are good.
Yeah.
But maybe the true CLM isn't. So I'm seeing, I think it's getting better. The true CLMs, the traditional ones, are getting better at their AI component. But I've seen a lot of people buying both, right? Like, look, and trying to figure out a way to do both. And I think it's hard, though, because it's hard to go to your GC or your budget owner and say, oh, the CLMs might not be enough. I need some additional funding to get us everything we need and to get into the AI game. And then the other thing I think is just, you and I have talked about this in our various conversations, is when you look at all these companies, whether it's the AI companies or the CLM companies, I still see that there's a lack of people in their organizations who really know how lawyers think and how lawyers work, even with the AI, right? They don't know what the true value is for lawyers sometimes when using AI. Like, if you're somebody like me that's been doing NDAs for way longer than I ever want to admit, some of what you show me is laughable, because some of it I could probably do faster with my own brain. Just, you know what I mean? Yeah. So they have to, on both sides, on the CLM side and on the AI vendor side, I kind of wish they would just hire a few more lawyers, not to be your lawyers, but to be your product specialists or your implementation partners.
Yeah, so. I think I'm cautiously optimistic, and I'm seeing a little bit of a shift especially the bigger kind of core CLM products, let's call them the end-to-end, infrastructural type of systems. They were SaaS, were tech, and they were very resistant to having too many humans on their P&L because I mean, I just say it, they're all SaaS, they're venture backed, they need to keep that the revenue high and eventually get to profitability, hopefully for them. But adding more humans was never the answer, and in fact, kind of humans were almost hidden, especially for that review part, those who were dabbling with contract review. I feel like I'm seeing a bit of a shift where the human in the loop is now becoming a feature. Actually, a colleague of mine used that term, and I think it was pretty smart. He's like, yeah, we had to kind of hide it. We had to call it quality assurance, and we had to, it's almost like when it was discovered, or we had to explain that we have humans. It was like, oh, well, so you're not really tech. You're not really AI. You're humans. And I think they're almost like new, too early to market. Fast forward now, I think what you're saying is starting to seep into the tech companies, not as fast as we'd like, but there's now this human in the loop. It's a term now. It's a thing. We've got humans in the loop. Don't worry. It's almost an insurance policy. But should the humans be in the loop at the client, at the customer side? Like, are the customers ready to spend the time that it takes to train and really educate the AI they just paid, bought? Or do we really want to see it more at the vendor? And I know that's what I think you were alluding to. But what do you think about the balance? Where should the human time and effort go into training AI?
I think it needs to be on both sides, obviously. But I think when you think about it, though, somewhere along the way, most products are not plug and play. So there's going to be a human involved somewhere on the vendor side. And if you get the right humans, you're not going to need as much time to get it right and to have that human in the loop. So I think sometimes when it's just a disconnect, though, of who that, it's not so much having the human, but what's their background and what is their skill set in. And yes, I need the technical person, but sometimes the technical person doesn't really understand. They understand how their product works, but they understand how their product works kind of in a vacuum. You don't understand how it's going to work for me and in my environment. And that's where I think, there's still room for improvement.
Yeah. I think what we see is still a bit of a gap between the tech is good. It's certainly becoming faster and better. I mean, it's becoming better faster than ever before, which is fantastic. And there's still this like little gray gap between the product, the tech, and then the actual pain that the customer is trying to solve. It's hard to articulate sometimes. It's hard to be very clear on it, but somehow there still continues to be a disconnect. And that's something I'm kind of watching closely. I'm wondering how it's going to be solved. I do see, and I'm calling it, I don't know if I'm the only one, or if I heard this somewhere or whatever, but this consultative approach that some of the better, I don't want to call them better, but really kind of more forward-thinking tech companies are taking. They're realizing that you need somebody that's lived and breathed it. And it can't just be any lawyer, just like you and I were kind of giggling about this. We're like, yeah, I was a litigation lawyer for 2 years, and now I'm helping the CLM tech company with their product roadmap. And you're like, do they know that not all lawyers are created equally? It's no different than our neighbors. Or like, you're a lawyer, I got this speeding ticket. And you're like, I'm not that kind of lawyer.
I know.
Do you feel like that's still happening? Is that happening a little bit out there with the vendors you're coming across?
I think it is. I actually think the ones that I've come across, if they are hiring a lawyer, they're at least on the right track with who they're hiring. The other thing I see them doing, if they don't want to get to that point of having maybe as many humans in the loop, is having a really strong customer advisory board where, you can get that real-time feedback from a core group of customers who can be in the same room, who can say things, and know it's not going to leave the room. And you can be collaborative and give candid feedback. It's not, everybody sitting there just patting each other on the back, but really give them that. And I've been part of those for various, vendors in my career. And those I think are really valuable because if they put the right people in the room, and I've seen the head of product and even a CEO and other ones in the room, along with the people doing the day-to-day tech work and implementation work, you can really make some good strides on that. So I think there's a couple different ways they could approach it.
I agree. I've also seen some really solid customer advisory boards. That's a really good point. Right? That's a great point because you can't always hire. And not just that, it's a great way to really build that trusted relationship.
It's free product development in some ways. Right? It's not free because we're paying for your product, but it is kind of for them. It's a little bit of free feedback.
if they take the feedback and they really value it, I think that's, and you see the difference in some of these, companies. Some are really in it for the long game. They want that trusted relationship built, and then there are others that are, I don't know, a little newer and chasing some of the revenue. I've been recently told that I tend to be a little bit negative, and I thought, okay, feedback taken. I'm old and cranky, and I've been around this for so long.
That's the problem, because we've been around it for a while, so you know the horror stories too, as much as you know the good stories, right?
So it's a tough space, and it's getting like tougher quicker. It's crazy right now, the speed of the change. So you've been in situations where you've got to pick tech, and you've been in situations where you've adopted, it was handed to you.
I call it inheriting.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. You inherited. What are some tips if you could do things from scratch based on all your learnings? How would you start today?
It's interesting because I've done enough implementations, I think, in my life where the one thing I've underestimated at times is especially if you're implementing a product that you're familiar with because you used it somewhere else, you need to park that a little bit, right? And you need to not assume that the way you like in your head, I think on default, you have that it's going to do this, it's going to do that, because that's how I used it. But then you're in a whole new environment doing something, with different people, different processes, different agreements, or whatever it is you're working with. So it's huge, I think, to kind of you have to almost treat it a little bit like this is a brand new product. And the other thing I always, you get so caught up in getting a new product. Am I going to get this product and this and that? And then you have to deal with the legacy product too, most likely, unless you're completely starting from scratch, in which case you're probably just dealing with a spreadsheet. But if you're moving from one product to another, don't underestimate how much work it's going to be to go from point A to point B, because there's just going to be a lot there, and probably more than you ever thought. And make sure you really plot that out as part of your getting the new product. And the other piece I would say is, no matter how much you plan for, no matter every single thing that you put in your RFP, the one thing you didn't think of is probably going to happen. Like, there's going to be one piece, something you forgot. It's going to come up, and you just have to learn to pivot as you need to pivot, or say, you know what? Yep, that's a problem, but we're going to deal with it. Put it on the roadmap of dealing with it when it comes to it. So,
So I flashed up here, not to lead the witness or anything, but this does seem to come up in every conversation. We may not call it that, but you just described that. The shifting from a legacy one. I always like to remind people that data migration, it could be a separate project, it could be in parallel. You can do a from now on plan for your new tech. You bring it in, you say from now on. That's okay. Don't be paralyzed by the sheer volume of stuff you might have in a legacy, in another tool. And I think reminding people that they have options, that isn't an all or nothing, is helpful, because there is just this paralysis that comes with doing a big migration from prior systems. I'd love to get your thoughts. So I learned my lesson very quickly when I was in-house at Microsoft, the value of a good project manager. Who also can help, who obviously is core to the change management, and to them it almost comes together. A good PM knows the value of change management exercises. But do you have a PM that is kind of with you side by side? And I know you've had different companies and different resources, I'm sure. But what's been your experience in either having a PM, or do you function in that role?
I have functioned as the PM, but I will tell you, it's not my. I can set my own little project plans, but I'm not, a trained project management professional. I have a PM right now, and wow, to have somebody that, and he's functioning and like on most legal teams, right? He's doing a lot. He's not only managing the project, he's doing trainings, he's doing all these different pieces and parts, but just somebody to keep you focused and on track, and keep the keep things moving. It's huge if you can do it, right? And if you have a really big project, but you don't generally have a need for a day-to-day project, because maybe you're a legal ops party of one and your first hire is probably not going to be a project manager, right? If you get headcount. But there are, like, if you're going to implement a new technology or migrate a technology, go out and find, temporary project management services, because, and you can work that into your budget for the overall project, because you can only do so much by yourself. But when you have somebody that's trained and that does this, they can keep all the dates and the spreadsheets, and then it can help with the budget and even, like all the different components, like, okay, we need to be doing this now, and thinking about, all the different stages. It just helps you keep moving while you're trying to deal with just keeping the day-to-day going, because you're also doing that too, right? You're keeping the day-to-day operations going.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you said that. I feel like when we say it comes out almost self-serving, and I just want to say, just you cannot possibly be prepared for the amount of moving pieces when it comes to a CLM system implementation in a company of any size over, I don't know, 300 employees or over 500, let's say. There's some point where you reach a tipping point where you can't do it yourself, because you do have a day job, whether it's keeping general operations going, or you're a commercial lawyer. And
you might not be a legal ops professional, right?
You might not be. And we have those all the time, that this is their, they're also putting in a system. The amount of tasks and activity, the number of things that have to be done to make a system go live, it's really hard to exaggerate just how overwhelming that could become, and how quickly it could kind of feel like a little bit of a fireball, and you're trying to maintain it. So I think getting that just temporary help and support, having somebody swoop in with you and be they're like your bouncer, like you own the bar, like a bouncer, like, wait, nope, this first, that they kind of keep everything. I don't know, they make order out of chaos, and it's just worth their weight in gold. I just wish there was a way to really, it's one of those, like, once you learn that painful lesson, you know what how to do it better.
They're also a lot of people that do that kind of work are also, you can't underestimate the power of personalities and to your projects. And a lot of the people doing project management they're really calm under pressure. They're calm under they're very calm under the different personality types that come in to play. And when you are doing a substantial project, it's huge to have somebody that can just be, because I'm not always the calmest person, and it's really nice to have that steady presence. That's not true of everybody, not to generalize, but it kind of is a skill set, I think, that comes with that line of work.
I think they are especially trained in dealing with different stakeholders. Right? Yep. That is one skill set that's a soft skill, and you're spot on. Yep. And actually, the PM on our team, we always talk about, how does she just diffuses everything, calms everybody down, and continues to make progress without being, it's not all touchy-feely. It's just very, like, methodical and efficient. And I don't.
And firm too. They can be firm when they need to be, right? They can set the boundaries that sometimes.
That's right. And you mentioned a good part, like, bake that into your costs. I think people do get very quick to jump to, how much is that tool? What are the license fees? Thanks. And they ignored, I think, two big things. One is the potential cost for professional services needed to make the tool do what you think it's going to do. The technical professional services that are also a touchy subject with all the different vendors. Some do it in-house, some don't. Some have special partners, and we always have questions about whose interest.
The right partner.
Yes, it can get a little sticky. And then the other big thing that they underestimate is, this cost of potentially getting some outside help to just project manage. And not even that, there's also tasks that need to be done. Oh, we don't have our approvals. We don't actually know who the approvals are. They're kind of different all the time. You've given a spreadsheet from a CLM vendor. They're expecting the customer is going to fill in that spreadsheet within a day or two and hand it back, and then they're going to configure it. That's implementation of a system for that particular piece of this puzzle. And suddenly the in-house team is going, oh God, we got to figure that. We need to write that down. Sometimes it's Bob, sometimes it's Susie. On a Tuesday, we like Bob and Susie to both take a look at some of the contracts, but not all of the contracts. It's all very organic. So a good PM again, or somebody's there to just say, okay, we're going to do a workshop. We're going to do this in 90 minutes. We're going to walk through all the different scenarios. We're going to lock that in. That's going to be your V1. Let's hand that off to the vendor and learn and iterate on it for the next time. But that facilitation, I think it's gets lost in the excitability to just go live.
Yeah,
you want to do. Okay, so we've talked about CLM. We've got our tips, our best practices in terms of you need good project management. Tell me a little bit about what do you think about what I call we call CLM readiness. It's again all the pre-work, boring stuff for most people. We find it fun. Policies, templates, roles and responsibilities. Who does what? Like, how do you configure a tool if you don't have a lot of that stuff figured out from the get-go? How much time do you spend thinking through the actual stuff, the templates, the role of legal versus business? How do you do an intake form? What needs to be on that form? I mean, all of that shouldn't be done during implementation. You kind of have to have stuff figured out.
Well, yeah, I was thinking about that when you were talking about the project manager helping you kind of with your implementation spreadsheet. And you can't, this is another thing where you can't underestimate how much time it takes to get the foundations right. And that's hard because everybody, most people are hired to do it, like to make an impact in legal operations. When you're, especially if you're the first hire or you were hired for a specific project, like, oh, okay, we're going to do a CLM implementation. And so you want to get out of the gate and like, I got this shiny tool and this is going to be great. But if you don't build that foundation, now you can't sit on it for 2 years. You got to act fast. And that's where, again, a PM might be able to help you with that. But if you don't take the time to build the foundation, it's never going to get off the ground. You're never going to get the stakeholders to use it and buy into it. So, I've done projects where it's well over a year or more to really get that going, because you have to get everything. You have to, understand those processes. And a lot of times that involves, depending on the size of your organization, it could involve a lot of attorneys, a lot of business people. And then you also have to start looking at those processes and saying, is this even what we want to be doing? Right? Like, is this right? Or because you don't want to take bad and put it into bad, because you're just going to get worse.
100%. Bad plus bad equals worse. That's the kind of math I completely understand. I think people, again, even something as simple as automating NDAs, right? Let's automate the NDA workflow. I always say that is if you can't nail that pretty quickly in the system that you just selected and are paying for, that is an indicator of bigger problems. If you still don't know how an NDA can be requested by the business, if you don't have an easy peasy template to be filled out and automated, ideally self-help, handed off to the business, routed for signature correctly. If you don't have that cleanly mapped, that's an indicator. Please don't tell me you're then going to, throw in your cross IP license, international joint marketing partnership agreements into a CLM system. So there's also phases, right? What do you think about that? We always say, don't do this big bang. Pick a workflow, pick a type of contract, pick a team in the legal department, pick a lawyer maybe with one particular function. But have you had good experience with phasing?
Pilots are great. I try to pilot lots of different, even a process change. I might sometimes try to pilot just a plain old regular process change. Just pilot it with a small group of people, see how it works. Because if you have your core group of people, and they're usually the people that are also kind of innovative and, and love to look at, there's a lot of lawyers who like process improvement. Don't underestimate that.
Right. A group of freaks like us. I love it.
Yeah. And so I think you should pilot your software if you can. Not every vendor will let you do it, but if you can pilot your software before you sign up for like a 3-year deal. Yep. Yeah, I've had a lot of success with pilot groups. Like even when you're building out a playbook, right? If you're going to use AI playbook, pilot it with a whole group of people before you go asking everybody else to build a playbook, only to discover that it doesn't operate as it should.
100%. So
straight people.
So you're saying piloting in general, because we hear about like doing a proof of concept with the tech. That's one type of pilot.
Yep.
Do the process changes, pilot that, make sure it works, get some input,
or at least get feedback first, right? Don't just go out there and I'm guilty of this too, where I think it's going to be this great thing and I pitch it to somebody and they're like, oh God, no, that's like, no, don't do that. You're not thinking about, you're not over here every day. I'm over here. And it's like, oh, right. Yeah. And then you're like, okay, oops, sorry. Oops.
Right. And hey, learning from that, oops and sorry is okay. That is how we experiment and learn. And it has to be in a safe place where you have the right leadership, right, who allows a oops, sorry, and let's try again. Well, maybe our time now is already up. I can't believe how fast things go.
I know, it does.
Thank you so much for joining me.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
We'll do another one. If you had a little bit of time in the new role, or with
I would love to.
Systems that you're playing in, and let's see what lessons come from that, and we'll have you back.
Sounds great.
Thank you so much. Lucy. Have a great rest of your day.